Hi there, small business owner. Your tiny hard-nosed QuickBooks team here.
We know you've got better stuff to do than looking after your tax, invoicing, payroll, mileage tracking.
And everything else. So let us take care of it. That's right. We're an entire business department, taking care of the finance stuff. 27 hours a day, 8 days a week.
So you can lose the stress and focus on being the best at what you do.
We got your back, boss!
Sign up now at quickbooks.co.uk.
Taking care of finance stuff into it, QuickBooks.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome to episode 135 of the Last Round Podcast. No Daddy Z today, but we have, I think, our most reoccurring guest, the editor-in-chief of The Ring magazine, Dougie Fischer, who's actually joined us from Ohio whilst he's on vacation. Dougie?
Yeah, that's true. Columbus, Ohio, top of the food chain.
There's some
Wait,
good...
I've been on your show more than anybody else. I'm the most recurring guest.
Yeah, I think so. I think you, probably Tom Gray, Andy Clark, Kevin Aioli, but I think you.
Oh, wow, I'm in good company. All right.
Yeah, I think you by far. I think, but at least Ohio, there's a lot of good boxers, past and present, coming out of that region.
Oh, of course, yeah. Out of Cincinnati, out of Youngstown, of course, out of Akron, Ohio, out of Toledo. You know, I think Cincinnati has the talent. I think Youngstown has like the hard-nosed guys. Cleveland, a lot of good fighters out of Cleveland. Youngstown and Cleveland, those are tough cities. You know, those are they're like factory cities, you know, back in the day, like real industry towns where everybody worked for whatever, a steel company or an automotive company or whatever. But they have a strong work ethic and a history that goes back to the 30s. Cincinnati, you know, it spawned guys like Aaron Pryor. That was the home of Ezzard Charles, like literally, like arguably the greatest light heavyweight of all time. But maybe, you know, when you put together the mythical list of the all-time great pound for pound, maybe Ezzard Charles, you know, his resume, it stacks up with the best of all time. I think he's in my top 10 pound for pound all time. I don't know if Adrian Broner lived up to his potential, but, you know, winning titles in 4 weight classes is something, even in this day and age, you know, with 17 weight classes and
right.
a lot of world titles. And, you know, I don't think Adrian could tell us, you know, who he beat for each of those titles. You know, I'm sure he's like, I don't know who I beat, to win the WBO 130-pound title. But he's, you know, he's a player. You know, he's been a player for like 10 years, and he's a tough guy, and he makes for good fights. He makes for good events. Do you remember a guy named bantamweight named Tim Austin? You remember Tim Austin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was an Olympian. I think he was a 92 bronze medalist, and he won I think it was the IBF bantamweight title, but he was sensational. What a talent he was. And there was an Olympic silver medalist named Ricardo Williams. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah.
Amazing amateur, and he fizzled out as a professional. That's the thing about the Cincinnati talent. They're all kind of like street level guys. Like there's the gym, and then there was the streets, and they never could, like a lot of them, not all of them. I'm not saying that about Ezzard Charles or Tim Austin, but I am saying that about Adrian Broner and Ricardo Williams and Aaron Pryor. And Aaron Pryor is arguably a great fighter, but, you know, the call of the streets was really strong. So they kind of burned the candle on both ends. And they could have been a lot better than they were. That's what I'm trying to say here. But, Robert Easter Jr. out of Toledo, Ohio, and Sean Porter out of the Cleveland area. You know, a lot of talent in Ohio. And then in Columbus, that's where my childhood was spent, there was this tournament that was part of the Ohio State Fair, a boxing tournament. And it was as big as New York City Golden Gloves or any national tournament. It was as big as the National Golden Gloves or the USA Championships, because everybody, all the top talent from around the country was there. So it's a boxing area. Yeah.
Terrence Crawford. Crawford's out of that area, right?
Oh no, Crawford is Nebraska.
Oh, that way.
He's real Midwest. Yeah, Omaha, Nebraska. Yeah.
All right, let's dive into the fight reviews. So, did you watch the MTK show, Dougie? On the Friday the 25th, we had Ricardo Sandoval, 19-1 against the KO over Jay Harris, 18-2. You know Ricardo Sandoval, though, from Riverside, one of the Henry Ramirez's kids.
Yep. Yeah.
Great performance from him on the MTK show. Some great matchups, obviously.
Yeah, and you can never overlook those guys out of Riverside. Like, there's a lot. You talk about boxing, and we're just talking about boxing talent coming out of Ohio. That part of, all over Southern California's crazy boxing talent. But the talent that comes out of Riverside, there's a system there. There's gyms for them to work out. There's an infrastructure for that talent to be cultivated, right? For them to be polished, for diamonds in the rough to be polished. And Henry Ramirez is a big part of that. And Thompson Boxing, the promotional, they do a lot of club shows, but they're more than just a club show promoter, because they actually develop club fighters into prospects, and prospects into legit contenders, and legit contenders into world champions. And some of those folks might they might wind up in the Hall of Fame. Thompson Boxing is just 20 years old, but Tim Bradley came out of that system. There was a bantamweight champion named Yanni Perez who came out of that system. Josecito Lopez, who is, a perennial contender in a number of weight classes, but, mainly welterweight.
Danny Roman.
But he was, Danny Roman, who went on to be a unified belt holder at 122 pounds. And there's other guys, they know how to cultivate the talent. And if the talent is dedicated enough, and willing enough, they transcend, Southern California, The great thing is about them, Tim Bradley, he had never fought outside of California before he got his title shot against Junior Witter. I forget what year that was, but that was for the WBC 140-pound title. And he was a huge underdog. And his first fight out of California, he travels across the Atlantic to England to take on Witter, who is a huge odds favorite, and he wins. And it was kind of like, it was an eye opener for the boxing world, where it's like, wow, this like Thompson Boxing, a club show promoter, developed a world champion, and they didn't stop there. So, they're a big part of it, but Henry, it starts with the talent and then the gyms, and you got to have a good trainer to cultivate, talent. So fighters who come out of that region, and they've got somebody like Henry Ramirez behind them, you can't overlook them ever. But that's there's a bunch of fights that there was a busy weekend of boxing, and there's a bunch of fights that I have to catch up on this week. That's one of them. There was the cruiserweight fight. There was the middleweight fight, Johnny Beck versus Rob Brandt. I've seen a couple rounds of it, but I haven't seen the fight in its entirety. And unfortunately, because there were like 3 shows kind of overlapping, there was the DAZN show, there was the ESPN show, and the Showtime pay-per-view. I'm real bad at multitasking. Like, I had 3 screens. I had ESPN on my laptop. I think I had DAZN on my phone, and I had Showtime on the TV screen. But I can't, and you know what, I'm tweeting, so I can't I can't say that I was watching all 3 at the same time. I can only focus on one. So I'm going to need to watch, I paid attention to the Erickson Lubin, Jason Rosario fight. And obviously, I focused in on the Lomachenko fight, and when Tank Davis fought Mario Barrios, I was have my full attention or whatever. But there's all these other fights that happened underneath those fights where I kind of was going back and forth. I wasn't really focusing my attention on them. So I'm playing catch up this week. So I'm sorry I can't give you like specifics on a lot of these undercard bouts.
What do you think the upside is for someone like Ricardo Sandoval in that division? Obviously, winning this fight, he puts himself in a mandatory position for the IBF flyweight champion, which is Sonny Edwards. But obviously, as we know, the flyweight division really is pretty hot at the minute.
It's deep. Yeah. The thing is, I mean, you can look good in one fight, and then in your very next fight, you can get upset by somebody that everybody's overlooking because the talent is like that. And with these lighter weight classes, these guys cross the street. They fly over oceans. You know, they'll go anywhere. They'll fight anybody. They have to, because a flyweight doesn't make the money that a middleweight makes. You know what I mean? Even like a mid-level middleweight, right? The best flyweight doesn't make the kind of money that like a welterweight prospect will make. You know what I mean? So if they're going to eat, they got to fight everybody. They can't play that game. And when you do that, it's tough. It's a tough schedule. So, Sandoval's a welcome addition to the flyweight division, just like Sonny Edwards was. You know, Sonny was, I don't know. I don't think he was the favorite. I don't think that Ring Magazine ranked Edwards going into that fight with the South African veteran. But it's that kind of division where guys can just pop up out of nowhere. And I think that the flyweight division, the junior bantamweight, super flyweight division, the junior flyweight division, 108 pounds, I think these are weight classes that a network or any platform worth its salt should really invest in, because you don't have to pay too much for these guys. You know, I mean, obviously somebody like Chocolatito Gonzalez and Juan Francisco Estrada, they're going to ask for money at this stage of their career, but they've accomplished enough to where like they're going to get into the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? But the other guys, the up and comers, like you don't have to break the bank to make a good fight, to make a unification fight at 108 or 112 or 115 pounds. And they always make for good fights. They just do. And I think I read somewhere the WBO title holder from Japan, the flyweight title holder, is it Junto Nakatani? So his name starts with a J. Junto. I think it's Junto. Yeah, he's going to fight the former WBO junior flyweight champion Angel Acosta.
The boy.
Yeah, I think he was. Or at least he was at one time. Yeah, I think he's with Miguel Cotto's promotion, and Miguel Cotto has a relationship with Golden Boy. But yeah, Tito Acosta, and I'm just like thinking there's no way that fight's not going to be awesome. It's a good fight, you know, and there's so many different matchups at 112 like that, and the fighters are willing to face each other. I mean, that's the thing. So it's I don't know how great. I don't know how long, you know, how good Sandoval, or I don't know, you know, how what kind of a win streak he can put forth if he's fighting the top guys at flyweight. But I don't really care. To me, it's about the fight, not about getting the W over and over again. You know, if a fighter goes 4-5 in his next 9 fights, if they're all good fights and it's quality matchups, then I'm happy. I'm satisfied as a boxing consumer.
Dougie, you know, we always talk about the flyweights not getting paid compared to, you know, the more attractive weight classes, the welterweights, the middleweights. Off the top of your head, what do you think a flyweight would get for a title fight?
Well, definitely less than $1 million. Oftentimes they're under 6 figures. You know, even at the world level, these guys are fighting, you know, for 60,000, 70,000, 80,000. And they're happy to make that much. It took, I don't think Chocolatito was making more than 6 figures and, you know, within his first 30 bouts or whatever. And the same thing for Estrada, as awesome as they were. It's very rare for a flyweight or a sub featherweight to making those high six figures, like other fighters that are on the world class that are heavier, the heavier weight classes. They expect it. And there's a history of that, the top fighters in their weight classes making $500,000 or $750,000, for a title shot or a title eliminator or, a fight between two legitimate top 5 or top 10 contenders. And it's different. Yeah, definitely. When you get to like 112 pounds, oftentimes, especially if it's not happening in the United States and it's not on a major platform, you can bet these guys are not making $100,000.
And I mean, after manager, medical, taxes, they're not taking home a great deal of money.
No, they're making as much as like a teacher is making, you know what I mean, per year. You know what I'm saying? They're making as much as, a postal worker makes, or, whatever. Even, in some cases, the person bagging your groceries, they're making that kind of money when it's all said and done at the end of the year. They made a lot of money for just one night, but after taxes and the manager's cut, the trainer's cut, and the cornerman and all that, and just the training expenses or whatever. If they're only fighting, twice a year or 3 times a year, they're not, after taxes, they're making like, maybe $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 for the entire year.
Right.
They're blue collar. You know what I mean? They're not. They're making what white collar professionals make, as soon as they get their job, right, in the entry level, and they're making what minimum wage folks are making, at the end of the year.
For some of the best action-packed fights we see, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's not fair, but I mean, it's just like, especially here in America, our ideal of what an athlete is, they're giants. Americans are bigger, on average than people from other countries. And I mean, even our golfers are big, man. our golfers are looking juiced up now. You know what I'm saying? But the major sports in America, football and basketball and even baseball, they're big. They're big guys. Like the average size is like 6'4" and 225, 230 pounds. And those aren't the big guys. Those aren't the big athletes. Those aren't the linebackers. Those certainly aren't the centers in the NBA. So our ideal of a world-class athlete is of a physically imposing specimen. And when we see grown men, who weigh in at 108 pounds and 112 pounds, we're like, Americans are thinking like, my kids are bigger than you. You know what I mean? Like my kid who is in 7th grade dwarfs you. I can't take you seriously. And these are casual sports fans. These are general sports fans. So it's hard. They need a lot behind them. And listen, Naoya Inoue, right? He's awesome, right? He's in everybody's top 3 or 5 pound for pound. And he's getting a big push from Top Rank and ESPN. Just before his most recent fight, ESPN did like a little, one of those little like fight hype documentaries or whatever, like a half-hour show. And I was one of the people that they talked to, and they talked to a bunch of, boxing insiders and fight scribes, and we're basically telling the public how great this guy is, how awesome he is, how exciting he is. But when you look at Twitter and people talking, it's just the hardcore fans that are excited about Inoue as much as he's accomplished. He's a 3-division world title holder. He's a Ring Magazine bantamweight champion. He's a unified. He's got 2 major titles at bantamweight. He was in Ring Magazine and everybody else's fight of the year for 2019 against the future Hall of Famer, Nonito Donaire. And it's like, he's got all these accomplishments. And if you look at his record, like half of his fights were against legitimate top 10 contenders. You know what I mean? But he's a little guy, and he's not from this country. And I follow Twitter, and I follow a lot of people, and there's people who are like kind of like celebrity fight fans, right? Like the NBA player, what's his name? Lillard. I'm not an NBA guy.
Damian Lillard, yeah.
Damian Lillard, right?
Yeah.
I think it was like last year, and he was like, he gave everybody his pound for pound, and he left Inoue out, right? And people, the hardcore heads come at him like, really, dude, you're gonna leave out Inoue? And he's like, well, who is that? I don't know who that is. Is he good? Right. And he was being honest. He wasn't being an asshole. He was just legitimately asking, like, I haven't heard of this guy. Is he good? And this is before he had fought on this, major U.S. platform, ESPN. At that point, he was in the World Boxing Super Series, and he was fighting on DAZN. That was the only way you could watch him in the United States, that and YouTube. So it's a hard road for sub featherweights. It really is. It's hard. It's tough for featherweights. It's tough for sub welterweights in America. The glamour divisions in America are welterweight, middleweight, and heavyweight. And everyone in between, even cruiserweights and light heavyweights, they get kind of overlooked. It's always been that way.
Moving on to the 140-pound division, Saturday from the State Farm Arena, Atlanta on Showtime. Gervonta Davis moved to 25-0 with a TKO 11 victory over Mario Barrios. What did you think, Dougie? I thought, Mario Barrios started well, probably took the first 5 or maybe even 6 rounds away from Gervonta.
I think after 4 rounds, I had it 3-1 for Barrios, and I was thinking it could be 4-0 for Barrios. And mostly because Davis is a low volume. He's a puncher and he's a pressure fighter, but he's a low volume puncher. He doesn't let his hands go. He wants to be in range. He wants every punch to count, and he loads up with single shots. I think Davis is a brilliant talent. I think he's got pretty good technique. He's obviously an athlete. He's gifted with world-class speed and power, and he just has an uncanny ability to let the right punch go at the right time, and he makes his punches count. But 2 areas of improvement. One would be putting his punches together, because I think he loads up with 1 shot at a time too much, and the other cutting the ring off. And Barrios was moving on him and just outworking him. He was working his jab. He was utilizing his height and reach advantage, and he was landing more than Tank was. He wasn't hurting Tank. He really wasn't discouraging Davis at all, but he was landing more, and so he was winning those rounds, at least over the first half of the fight. He deserved to be ahead on the official scorecards. I'm not sure if he was, but he deserved to be. I know he was on Showtime's unofficial scorecard, Steve Farhood's scorecard. And I agreed with that.
Yeah, he wasn't ahead on the official scorecards, amazingly.
Yeah, no, listen, I thought that, I think after, let's see if I have my notepad with me. I scored it. I thought at some point Tank took over the fight. Here. All right, so I gave Tank the 5th round and the 6th round. And the 7th round, I thought it was close. I thought I gave it to Davis, but I thought Barrios made if you scored the 7th round to Barrios, I wouldn't have been upset about that. But obviously in the 8th round, Davis he took over the fight, But I thought that after the 4th round, I thought Davis was getting closer and closer, and just gradually imposing his will on Barrios and letting Barrios know that it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what your game plan is. It doesn't matter how well you move or how often you hit me. I know you can't hurt me, and I know I can hurt you. And it's only a matter of time before I connect with the sure shot. It's going to change everything. And that happened in the 8th round. And, and to Barrios' credit, he survived. To Barrios' credit, he survived. He really is. He's not just a good boxer. He does have that warrior spirit. He calls himself an Aztec warrior, and he did fight with that spirit. And I thought Barrios came back really nicely. In fact, I scored the 9th round for Barrios because Davis maybe punched himself out a little bit, or maybe he was just content. He was complacent and like, well, I got this. I heard him. I let him know who the boss is, and I'm going to catch him eventually before the 12th round. I'm going to catch him with another sure shot, and I'm going to take him out, which is what happened. But in the meantime, I thought he dropped the 9th round. And I thought the 10th round was pretty close. It was pretty close. But, because I think there was only 17 punches from Tank. That was in the 9th round. In the 10th round, I think Tank hurt Barrios late in that fight, which is why I scored the 10th round for Tank. But after 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes, I was thinking, okay, this is another round for Barrios, which was making it really interesting if the fight had gone the distance. But, Tank had that confidence of just the stronger, more explosive talent, and that's what played out.
What do you think about? Obviously, there's a huge debate about him picking up a WBO.
Is it really a huge debate, or is it just a few jackholes that are like PBC, pom-pom queen cheerleaders that are like, no, you got to recognize the regular WBA belt because Tank is fighting for it. How many people really give a shit about that? I mean, I know the network wants to call it a championship bout because it's a pay-per-view. I know Mayweather Promotions want to pump their guy up, want to claim that their guy is a 3-division champion. But I mean, how many people really give a damn about the WBA regular title? I mean, I know there's a few fans that are loud because they came at me. They came at me because they came after Tom Gray, and then they came at me. And I'm just like, what are you mad about? Like, Gray's just saying it's ridiculous that a month ago, we crowned an weight champion. Oh, did you freeze there?
You're back.
Uh-oh.
You're back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, yeah.
Oh, shoot. Was that on your side or my side?
I'm not too sure. It didn't say.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So I was going on a bit of a rant. Just like, I know there's a few hardcore heads out there that are like, F-Ring magazine, because you guys say you don't recognize the regular WBA title belt. But I'm just like, nobody else does either. The casual fan, and here's the thing, Leonard Ellerby of Mayweather Promotions. And by the way, I kind of like Leonard. I don't dislike Leonard. He's just doing his job. And I think Mayweather Promotions has done a good job with Mayweather. I'm sorry, with Tank Davis. But his whole thing is that Davis is a transcendent type of star, right? He's an attraction. Okay. And he should only fight fighters who bring something to the table, like a fan base, like Davis has proven in Atlanta and in a few other markets, Baltimore and even Southern California. He's proven to be able to put butts in the seats, and that's great. And I love that. And he's also must-see TV because he's an exciting, aggressive boxer puncher. And the fans who were there in the arena, they weren't there because he was fighting for the WBA title. They were there because they're Tank fans. So that's my argument. It's like, did Tank fans recognize a WBA title period, whether it's regular or super? I would say no. I would say they don't give a shit. They're just Tank fans. I don't think with a talent like that, who's popular like that, who has that type of charisma and taps into the markets that Davis taps into, because he taps into markets that are outside of the hardcore fan circle, right? Just like Ryan Garcia does, right? And I think it's good. I think it's good for boxing. You don't need to promote a fight as the championship bout. It's just Tank Davis. You could say it's just Tank Davis, a top junior lightweight is going up 10 pounds, take on a top junior welterweight. That's the story right there. Like a top junior lightweight title holder is taking on a top junior welterweight, period. You don't have to say he's got the junior varsity WBA title, you know? And to those who get mad and like, well, you know, I had people like pull up tweets of mine from, you know, last year or, you know, 2 years back saying, well, you just mentioned it. I'm like, well, we never said we wouldn't mention a fucking WBA regular title. We just don't recognize it as a world title. We can still talk about it. You know what I'm saying? We can still tweet it. We could say, and I will say it's the regular title. I won't say it's a super title. But if Ring Magazine is going to recognize one WBA title, obviously it's going to be the super title, because the super title is going to be held by the more accomplished fighter. You know what I'm saying? And if you ask me, it's the Ring Magazine champion is the real fucking champion. And anyone who wants to debate that, look at who is the WBA regular title holder and look at who's the Ring Magazine champion. And you tell me who's the better fighter in every weight class. You tell me who is the real champion. Is the real champion at super middleweight Canelo Alvarez, or is it this guy who just fought, the WBA regular belt holder? I can't even think of his name. Do you know his name?
WBA regular?
Yeah. Who's the WBA regular super middleweight title holder? Champion. Champion in quotes.
I can't
See,
remember.
you can't even tell me. But
Yeah.
you know Canelo Alvarez is a champion at 168 pounds, right? And it goes for every weight class. Who are you going to tell me is the lightweight champion, right? Is it Teofimo Lopez or is it Tank Davis? Tank Davis has the WBA regular belt at 135 pounds. But Teofimo Lopez, the Ring Magazine champion, has got the IBF, the WBO, the WBA super title. And I don't, the WBC belt. Okay, that's held by Devin Haney, and Lopez has got the WBC franchise belt, which is the problem. There's just too many variations of sanctioning organization belts out there. And it's getting harder and harder to crown an undisputed champion. So I thought we did. I thought we all agreed that Jose Ramirez versus Josh Taylor was for the undisputed junior welterweight championship. There's nobody who disagreed with that at the time, right? And Josh Taylor won, so he should be the damn undisputed 140-pound champion, okay? He's the Ring Magazine 140-pound champion, and he proved worthy of that title by beating Jose Ramirez. And between the two of them, they have cleaned out the 140-pound division. They fought all the top contenders. They paid the cost to be the boss. Gervonta Davis has defeated one legitimate junior welterweight, Mario Barrios. We can't look at him as the champion. It's silly. It's silly to do so. And the folks who do that, mainly on Twitter, on boxing Twitter, those are just PBC cheerleaders, And I don't have a problem with the PBC. I really don't. I mean, I bought that pay-per-view. I was happy to pay for it because I knew it was going to be a good show. We had Erickson Lubin versus Jason Rosario, and we had Tank Davis versus Mario Barrios. Those are good fights. I got my money's worth. I'm happy with it. I want to support Showtime. You got to support Showtime with these pay-per-views. That helps them pay for, hardcore fights and matchups like in the junior featherweight division. I love what they're doing at 122 pounds. I really do, with Stephen Fulton and Brandon Figueroa and Danny Roman and Angelo Leo and all these guys. They're doing a nice little round robin there, and I'm more than happy to support Showtime. I love Showtime. So I'm not a hater. I'm not, it's got nothing. It's nothing against Tank Davis. It's nothing against Mayweather Promotions. It's nothing against Al Heyman and the PBC. It's nothing against Showtime. But that belt that Davis has, that does not make him a champion at 140 pounds. End of story. Davis beating Mario Barrios makes him a contender, makes him a top 10 junior welterweight. End of story. And And that's an accomplishment in of itself, because he's a 130 pounder who moonlights at 135 pounds occasionally, and he probably should be fighting at 135. And I hope he does fight at 135. And I hope the right fights are made at lightweight with Davis, because they're huge fights, and they're fights that he can win. I wouldn't count Davis out against Devin Haney or Ryan Garcia.
What are your thoughts, Dougie, on, I think it was what Leonard Ellaby said after the fight, pretty much just saying that we're not going to see him in there with a lot of the big names that we wanted, and like you touched on, because, they're not big enough attractions to come to the show.
Well, he said that just about Josh Taylor, right? He just said that about Josh Taylor, which I'm like, whatever. I mean, yeah, Taylor's fought once in the U.S. Obviously, he's not going to be a huge draw in the U.S. We're still in a pandemic. We're at the tail end of it, but we're still in a pandemic. I mean, he does draw at home. He does draw. I mean, I remember watching this fight with Regis Prograis. That was at the O2 Arena in England. Yeah, right. No. There was some butts in the seats. Come on, man. I know he draws in Scotland. You know what I'm saying? So, but whatever. I don't pay much attention to that, because that's fans jumping the gun. Any fan whoever was asking Ellerby, oh, what about Tank Davis fighting Josh Taylor? Tank hadn't defeated Mario Barrios yet. You know what I'm saying? And we don't know if he's going to decide to stay at 140 pounds. He's got options. No. And at his height, it makes sense for him to drop back down to 135. I don't know if he's ever going to make 130 again, because I know that's not easy for him. He's a thick dude, right? The big head, big neck and big head. He's a bull. 135 is probably where he belongs, and I wouldn't complain about that. So, if he's got more options at lightweight, I'm not going to sit here and pontificate on how he's going to do against the junior welterweight champ, especially knowing that the junior welterweight champ is probably going to have one more fight at 140 and then move up to 147 to challenge Terrence Crawford, which I'm totally cool with, by the way.
Knowing the boxing sphere as you do, who would you see Gervonta in with next? Someone that would actually make sense, because all that crossing the road and, keeping each other away from each other. Who could you see him?
Well, he's from Baltimore, and he's a draw there. And Gary Russell, the WBC featherweight champion, he's from that area, and he draws okay. He would be a bigger draw if he fought more than once a year. Right. But he fights once a year. But here's the thing: when he does fight once a year, he reminds us how talented he is, and what a skilled technician he is. What a great southpaw. I mean, he's, they can meet at 135. Or 130. If he can make 130, that's fine. But Russell has said he would go up to lightweight for big fights. I think that's a big regional fight. I think that would sell well in the Beltway. If Washington, D.C., Maryland area, you know what I mean? So that's they're both on the PBC side of the street. I don't know. I think Chris Colbert is a big talent at 130 pounds. I don't know if he's a big enough name for Davis. I don't know if Davis is ever going to go back down to 130 pounds. And I don't know if Colbert would be willing to step up to 135. But that would be an interesting matchup right there. There's a Mayweather fighter who's got like one of those WBA titles at 135. Maybe it's the interim belt. What's the guy's name? I like him. Rolly.
Oh yeah.
Rolly's a character. He's a lightweight. Yeah, that's Rolly Romero. I like him. I like his personality, because he seems like a nut. That could be a fight. I don't know. I don't know how well that would sell. I feel like at this stage of Davis's career, he needs names, and Gary Russell has been around long enough. And Russell has never had a big fight. Russell has never been in. I mean, he fought Lomachenko in like Lomachenko's third pro bout. But that wasn't a huge event. I mean, I was there for that fight. That was at the old StubHub Center in Carson, California. And it wasn't a huge, it was hardcore fans were into that matchup, but Lomachenko hadn't yet made his name, and he was still a bit of a question mark. He was coming off a loss. And Gary Russell was undefeated. He was 24-0 at the time, but he wasn't yet, that was his first title fight. So when I look at Russell's record, I don't see any, I see some respectable names like Lomachenko and Joseph Diaz Jr., but I don't see any big matchups, like big events, right? So Davis would make for a big event, especially in their home region. That to me makes sense. That's an interesting fight because Russell doesn't have the size and the power, but he does have speed that can match Davis, and he has the technique, and he has the skill set. In fact, I would say Russell, and he's more experienced too. And I would say Russell's more mature, and his fundamentals are better than Davis's. So it's an interesting matchup like that. It's kind of like Russell would be the matador, and obviously Davis would be the bull. So it's an interesting matchup. So I think if that's a fight that can be made, they should make it. And and after that, see if I heard Mayweather comments where he was saying that we won't cross the street, or we won't work with other promoters. We're not going to make another promotional company great, which is absolutely ludicrous. It's ridiculous. If you believe in your guy, you're not going to make that company great. You're going to make your guy great. You're going to make your company great by having those co-promotions. I mean, listen, Oscar De La Hoya didn't become the number one star in boxing by just fighting top-ranked fighters. Occasionally, he had to fight a Don King fighter, like Felix Trinidad, or he had to fight a Cedric Kushner fighter like Shane Mosley, or he had to fight a main events fighter like Fernando Vargas. You know what I'm saying? And these made for big events. Ike Corte was main events, as a matter of fact, and being in those fights, win, lose, or draw, it made him a bigger attraction. It added to his legacy. You can't just do it all on one side of the street. At some point, when you have a star fighter, you do have to fight the stars of other promotional companies. That's just the way it is, and it was no different from Mayweather. For Mayweather, it's no different. It shouldn't be any different for Tank Davis, in my opinion.
That's a great fight, I think. Kerry Russell against Gervonta Davis. Yeah, it's
a makeable fight, right? Davis needs dance partners. Russell isn't getting any younger. He's never been in a big fight. He's never been in a huge event. He's never been in a pay-per-view main event. Well, that would be a pay-per-view main event. And a good local fight, if they're going to do it in the Beltway, if they're going to do it in that Washington, D.C., Maryland, Baltimore area, okay. That will put butts in the seats. That's what it's all about, right?
Moving on that card, Erickson Lubin, 24-1, KO6 over Jason Rosario. This was for the WBC Silver Super Welterweight. Lubin kind of really showed us, the prospect that we thought he was years and years ago before he came across Charlo.
A couple of years ago, he was, 5 years ago? I think he was Ring Magazine and ESPN's Prospect of the Year.
Was it that long ago? 5 years? That's gone quick.
Yeah, it was a while ago. Yeah, I think so, because he lost. Didn't he lose to Jermell 4 years ago? Hasn't it been 4 years? Yeah. So he was going into that fight as the previous year's Prospect of the Year. He was only 21 years old. I think he was rushed. I think he was rushed a bit in that fight. I didn't like that fight for him. I thought Jermell was way too mature, had too much experience for him. Also, in his physical prime. I didn't think Jermell would take him out in one round, right, but I thought he would take him out. You know what I mean? I thought it was going to happen, at some point in that fight. It happened sooner rather than later. But, he's bringing in Kevin Cunningham as his lead trainer, and he's fought the right fights. He's regained his confidence, his mojo. I think he's got a good ring identity now. He's more of a boxer puncher rather than a pure seek and destroy fighter. I think he's ready. I think he's ready now for the world class, truly. And, and Jason Rosario was a legitimate top 10, former unified belt holder, but, a legitimate top 10 junior welterweight. So he's knocked off the top dogs. I think he's ready for another title shot.
Yeah, I thought it was good to go away, slowly build back up, kind of in the shadows.
Yeah,
and then come back. Yeah,
and most of the time these guys do, actually, after these like shocking first round knockouts. The boxing world turns their backs on these dudes, but if they have the kind of amateur background that Lubin has, and the kind of talent that he has, then they can bounce back from a first round KO, just like Amir Khan did.
Right.
And believe me, I remember when Amir Khan got blasted out by that dude from Colombia,
Breeders
Prescott. Everybody just took a big old greasy dump on him, and it's just like, dude, he's got talent, but he made changes, right? So he crossed the pond, signed up with Freddie Roach, and got to work at the Wild Card Boxing Club in Hollywood, and he went on. They had a nice run together. I mean, they were fighting some good fighters, some good junior welterweights from Chino Maidana, and that was like a fight of the year candidate.
That was probably his best ever fight.
Yeah, Paulie Malignaggi, who was a top 10 guy, and he fought him in New York, and Zab Judah, a veteran, who I think came in with a belt. So he unified the WBA and the IBF 140-pound titles. I thought he beat Peterson, by the way, and he fought Lamont Peterson in Washington, D.C. It's like, man, he had a nice little run there. And he was fighting real guys, in America. And, you can't count these guys out, anybody. I had a trainer back in the day, back in the mid-90s, named Kevin Morgan, who was like a welterweight fringe contender back in the day, like 70s and 80s. And he always told me anybody can be knocked out in the first round because you can be cold. Sometimes, even if you're a main event fighter, sometimes you're called into that ring before you're ready. Like there's like the undercard, there's a bunch of knockouts and the show gets moved along and they're like, you're up. It's your time. You got to get in that ring or whatever. And you're still a little bit cold. And he always told me anybody, including great fighters, can be caught in the first round and knocked out in the first or second round. It's part of boxing. And that always stuck with me. And because, he himself had been knocked out a lot in the first and second round. And he always said, I got caught cold. They call, he was a prelim fighter. And just out of the blue, they're like, you're up, Morgan, go. And he's like, holy crap, I just got my gloves on, I'm not even warmed up. And he got clipped, he's in against real guys, like Marlon Starling, or Pete Ranzani. And he got knocked out, right? And so he just believed it, that anybody can be knocked out in the first round. And that's always stayed with me. So I've never jumped off a bandwagon when a guy gets clipped in the first and second round. And I'll give you an example. Melikuziev, Bekdemir Melikuziev, he just got clipped. And it was in the third round, right? Against an excellent gatekeeper in Gabe Rosario, Gabe Rosado. And I think he'll be back. Listen, he got humiliated, and it's going to bring him back to earth. It's going to put his feet firmly on the ground and let him know that he just can't walk in there and whack everybody out with body shots. He's got to protect his chin. He's got to give veterans their due respect. He can't get wild in there, but he's going to listen more to his trainer now after suffering that knockout. And he's going to get better. Just like Vladimir Klitschko did, just like Lennox Lewis did, just like so many fighters in the Hall of Fame got clipped early in the early rounds. And, we'll see how far Lubin can go, but I never stopped believing in Lubin. Like, I never thought we screwed up by making him prospect of the year. No, the talent was there. A prospect is a prospect. He's not proven yet. His prospects look good. You know what I mean? And but if you're rushed, if you get in there with a real guy, you can get drowned. You can get overwhelmed. It happens in boxing, but you can also come back. You can learn from that experience, and you can see where if you were making mistakes or if you made mistakes, you can rectify that. You can correct those mistakes, and that's how you evolve as a fighter.
I think a lot of Linares' losses by KO.
Yeah, early. Yeah, most of them were early. Yeah,
like first or second round.
That's true. And he remains a perennial contender at lightweight.
Right. Moving on to the other big card of that weekend from the Virgin Hotels Las Vegas on ESPN. Vasily Lomachenko, 15-2, TKO 9 over, I'll just say Nakatani, who moved to 19-2. He was back. Matrix reloaded, as everyone kept saying. I thought it was a good performance.
I thought he looked really good coming off shoulder surgery and that much inactivity. He hadn't fought since last October. And his legs were there and his reflexes was there. But most importantly, his confidence was there. It didn't seem like the loss to Lopez affected him in a negative way. I think it affected him in a positive way, and that it's rekindled a fire in his belly. And he sounds a little bit obsessed with Teofimo Lopez, but that's to be expected with a competitor like that. We're talking about a guy who had almost 400 amateur fights, and he won all of them but one. And that one dude who beat him, he had to beat him. He wanted that rematch, and he beat him. So I would expect him to want to get that get back. To use that as motivation. And he seemed really fired up against the Japanese fighter who's been tough on everybody, who is, literally and figuratively speaking, a tall order, tall and rangy and tough as nails. And I think by getting the stoppage, being the first lightweight to stop Nakatani, he did. I think he made a statement. And I loved his footwork was there. The head and upper body movement was there. The angles was there. Solid punches, good punches to the body, accurate shots to the dome. I think he protected his spot as Ring Magazine's #1 rated lightweight, just behind the last man to beat him, Teofimo Lopez, who was our champion. And I think he makes for tremendous fights against any of these guys. I think a matchup with Tank Davis would be sensational. A matchup with Devin Haney would be great. A rematch with Lopez would be awesome. A fight with Ryan Garcia would be fascinating. I wouldn't count him out in any of those fights. I would probably only favor Teofimo Lopez to beat Lomachenko, as a matter of fact. And I think that's a winnable fight for Lomachenko. He just needs to make a few adjustments. He doesn't have to change much. He just needs to be a little bit more aggressive and confident in the opening rounds. He can't wait the way he did, and I don't think he had enough respect for Lopez. I think he really felt that Lopez was a front runner. I think he felt that Lopez would fade badly over the second half, which didn't happen. And now he knows better. And he knows that Lopez is not just this tremendous athlete. He's a smart boxer in there. He's a smart counterpuncher. So I think if Lomachenko gives Lopez his deserved respect and prepares accordingly, I think it's a winnable fight for him. My choice, my pick would be Lopez again by decision, but I don't think it's out of the question that Lomachenko can beat Lopez.
Knowing how the boxing business is and putting our business hat on,
I hate doing that.
Right?
I don't like the business of boxing.
If you were Teofimo Lopez, would you not just drop the belts and run to 140?
It depends on how he feels as an athlete. If he is struggling to make 135, then absolutely. You do not want to face Lomachenko. Lomachenko is going to be more motivated as a challenger than he was as a champion. That's just how it is. You're hungry, you're on your way up. And his pride was hurt. His pride was hurt badly in that loss. So and not only that, he feels like the Nevada Athletic Commission and the judges had it out again. were against him. Like he was pissed off about, I think it was Julie Letterman's card, right? It was really lopsided.
Yeah.
So in his mind, it's like, oh, they're out to get me. So he's got that chip on his shoulder too. Like he's going to come a lot harder. He's going to come a lot sharper than he did the first time around. So you don't want to face a guy like that being weight drained. You don't want to be compromised athletically, physically speaking. You want to be healthy. So if it's all about his health, if he struggles to make 135 against George Kambosos, and he gets by that fight, he needs to move up. You don't want to tempt fate. You really don't. So it's all about what his body tells him. I would say listen to your body. Don't listen to the money. Don't listen to your father. Don't listen to Bob Arum. Don't listen to anybody. Listen to your body. If your body says we're done with 135, move up to 140, because guess what? There's great fights to be made at junior welterweight. On his side of the street, with Top Rank and the ESPN platform, you got Josh Taylor, who's the undisputed champion, and they're both pound for pound ranked. So if they were to fight, whoever would win that fight, they could arguably be number one, or at least top three, because you got two top 10 guys facing each other, right? There's also Jose Ramirez. That's a hell of a fight. There's Zepeda. They got Barboza, right? Isn't he a top ranked guy?
Yeah, and then Pedraza.
Yeah, they got Jose Pedraza too. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of players at 140 pounds that are right there. Those are makeable fights. And Lopez makes for good fights, and that's a variety of styles. I don't think I mentioned any stinker. There's no like stinky kind of styles. There's no Victor Postol. I didn't mention Victor Postol is not part of the top ranked stable. We got Barboza, we got Zepeda, we got Pedraza, we got Ramirez, the former champion, and we got the current undisputed champion, and Josh Taylor. And these guys they're boxers, but they're aggressive. So those are all good fights for Teofimo Lopez. So there's no point in waiting around. If you can't make 135, the hell with it. Drop the belts and move up.
Looking at what Lomachenko achieved in 16 fights before he fought Teofimo Lopez, do you think he's underappreciated?
It depends on who you ask. I don't understand it, but there's Lomachenko detractors.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird thing. I see people, they want to big up Davis, and the way they do that is to shit on Lomachenko. And I don't understand. That's not real support. That's not supporting Davis. If you want to support Davis, buy his pay-per-views, or if he fights in your area, buy a ticket and go see him fight and cheer your ass off for him, And when he wins, say rah, rah, rah. And when he loses, have his back. That's a real fan. That's a real fan. A real fan is like Julio Cesar Chavez fans back in the day. They didn't care if he fought on HBO or if he was fighting on Showtime or if he was promoted by Bob Arum or Don King or if he was fighting on Univision. And if he won, they were happier than ever. And if he lost, they were gutted, but they had his back. And when he came back, they were there for him. You know what I mean? A real fan is like me and Chocolatito, right? When he lost for the first time against Rungvisai, I was like, man, he won that fight. But props to the Rat King. Props to the tank from Thailand, right? Because it takes two to tango. It takes two to make a great fight. I thought that was fight of the year. I thought that was a better fight than Klitschko Joshua. I really did. I thought that was the best fight that year. But in the rematch, you know what? My man didn't have it. I could tell. As he walked through the ring, he was like, oh my God, I'm about to get executed. And that's what happened. Got decapitated, got taken out. And man, I was there. That was StubHub Center in Carson, California. I was gutted. I mean, I wanted to cry. But that's a fan. You feel, but at the same time, props to the guy. Give credit to the guy who beat your man. If you were saying your man is pound for pound number one and your man is a future Hall of Famer and somebody knocks him the fuck out, then you just got to tip your hat to that guy, which is what I did. I'm like, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Sorong Desais. But I love Chocolatito. And I didn't stop supporting him. If he wanted to retire, I was like, great career, man. You're a Hall of Famer. You're arguably great, you know. He wanted to continue. I'm like, good. I support you. Have his back. And from the time of that loss until he beat Cal Yafai for the WBA title at 115, you know what I said? Whenever his name came up on Twitter, you know what I said? He's the king. He's still the king. He don't have a crown, but he's still the king. That's a fan. That's how you fan. You don't hate on another fighter to big up your guy. I don't understand that. I don't understand people hating on Lomachenko because they want to big up another lightweight, whether it's Lopez or Garcia or Tank Davis or whoever. It's like, give Lomachenko his props. Lomachenko's first fight at lightweight was Jorge Linares, and it was a fight. He got dropped in that fight. He had an injured shoulder in that fight. He bit down, went to the body, and got that late stoppage, man. I was there. I was at Madison Square Garden for that fight. That was sensational. It was a great atmosphere. If you were a fan of Jorge Linares, you tip your hat to Lomachenko. Be like, man, I wanted my guy to beat you, and it looked like he was on his way, but you overwhelmed him. Just give him his props, you know. He follows that up with Pedraza, man. You know, he's collecting belts. You know what I'm saying? He wanted to be undisputed. He wanted to be unified. I don't understand how people can hate on that. I don't understand how people can say that he avoided fighters, right? Those who say that he ducked Devin Haney, I'm like, how did he duck Devin Haney? He went from Luke Campbell to Teofimo Lopez. Those are two top 5 guys, man. He went from Luke Campbell to Teofimo Lopez, who had the IBF title. It's like he ain't ducking nobody. He's fighting real guys, man. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't understand it. But there are folks who love Lomachenko. There are folks who hate him, which I don't get because it's not like he's a big time asshole. He's not out there talking shit about people.
Doesn't really talk.
He doesn't really talk, period. You know, I mean, if you want to be mad about that, be mad about that, but don't hate the man. Respect his record. I mean, his first world title win was against Gary Russell Jr., who's still the #1 rated featherweight, according to Ring Magazine. Still WBC champion at 126 pounds. This is a guy that Lomachenko outclassed in his third pro bout. And he's fought real guys from then. He fought Rocky Martinez, and he fought Nicholas Walters, and he fought Guillermo Rigondeaux.
But we haven't seen Walters since, have we?
No, he took Walter's soul, the Axeman. The only guy to knock out O'Neal Donaire, man. You know, like this dude's. I mean, that guy was a boss. Like, give him his respect. He's fought real guys, man. That's a concentrated resume. He doesn't have a lot of pro fights, but it's arguably a Hall of Fame resume. You know, played over 3 weight classes. So, you know, I don't get anyone who has a dislike for Lomachenko or the need to detract from him, because you really can't when you look at who he's fought, and that's what it really comes down to. It's not so much belt collecting or even division hopping, because we're talking about an era of 17 weight classes. We're talking about an era where you weigh in the day before the fight, sometimes 30 hours before you fight. We're talking about 4 sanctioning bodies, and some of these sanctioning bodies have multiple world champions in the same weight class. So it's not really about the belts. It's not really about the weight class. It's about who you fight. Were they quality? That's the bottom line. And when you look at who Lomachenko fought, just go to BoxRec and look at them. Those are good guys. Those are guys with winning records. They're tough. They're tough cookies. You know, fighting Orlando Salido in your second pro bout, that's crazy. If Orlando Salido just beat the shit out of Lomachenko and knocked him out in 5 or 6 rounds, I'd still have respect that Lomachenko fought that dude, that Punisher, in his second pro bout. That's crazy. But you know what? He took him the distance and had Salido, who came in overweight and was throwing a lot of low blows throughout that fight. He had Salido holding on at the end of that fight. He had Salido reeling in the 12th round. That let me know about Lomachenko's character right there. In the second pro bout, he let you know, man, he's a dog. That's what should count, you know.
On that same card, I think you said you saw some of the highlights. Zanibek moved to 10-0 after Rob Brandt was pulled out by his corner.
Yeah, right thing to do.
Yeah, very one-sided fight. Yeah, I think it was good of Bomac to kind of, talk to him in the corner, tell him that
Rob Brandt didn't have it. He just, I don't know what was going on. Mentally, he seemed checked out. He didn't have the same confidence that I'm used to seeing him fight with. Maybe he's one of these guys, and you get him from the amateurs all the way through the pros to the highest level of the professional ranks. You have some guys who just can't fight southpaws. Southpaws just mess their minds up. I don't know. He might be one of those guys. But he lacked confidence in that fight. I think he made Janibek look a little bit better than he actually is.
Right.
Because I know some people are like, oh, man, let's let Janibek loose against any middleweight. And I'm like, slow down a bit. But Janibek has an excellent trainer, a Hall of Famer in Buddy McGirt. And he's been working with him for a while. I've seen them train. Buddy's got like 3 guys from Kazakhstan. Janibek is the brightest talent out of that trio. And he's learning. He's learning day by day and fight by fight. He learned a lot. I think he went the distance with a really good gatekeeper, Devon Alexander's brother. What's that guy's? That's his name.
Vaughn Alexander.
Vaughn. Yeah, Vaughn. Yeah, Vaughn gave him a tough fight, and that was good for him. It's good for him to go the distance and be in there with a dude he couldn't hurt, who was like, yeah, I'm going to get in your chest. Yeah, show me something. And I think that kind of sparked his learning, enhanced it in the gym. And I think he's gotten better fight by fight. And he's got kind of a funky, quirky, little bit unorthodox southpaw style.
Yeah.
He's a little herky-jerky in there, which is good. It's a plus. Here's who I want to see him fight. I'd love to see him fight like a Jaime Munguia, because they're the number 1 and number 2 contenders for the WBO. And whoever wins that fight, I'd like to see them challenge Boo Boo Andrade. That's a good fight. Those are interesting matchups. I like Janibek against Munguia because Munguia is a good all-around boxer puncher, and he's aggressive, and he's been improving fight by fight. I think he's improving under Eric Morales. And he'll present something that I don't think Rob Brandt presented with, and that's confidence and aggression. So I think Munguia would have the confidence to try to walk Janibek down, and we'll see how Janibek would react to that type of fighter. I'm not 100% sold on him after 10 fights. I'm not going to say he's like a top 5 middleweight, but he is a legit middleweight contender. And I think he's ready for the top 5 now.
Moving to Sunday, I'm not too sure if you saw this, Dougie, but David Morale, now 5-0 with a KO1 over Mario Abel Cazares, 12-1 for the WBO.
Just saw highlights of the knockout, which was nasty.
What do you think is the... how far do you think we're going to see David Morrell go? People are jumping on the bandwagon very early, saying that he's going to be. Yeah,
I don't know. No, I need to see more of him. I need to see more. That's the bottom line. Super middleweight division. It's not as deep as some divisions, but it's not shallow. He's not rated by Ring Magazine, obviously. He's got a ways to go. But that was good exposure. That was a good platform. Scoring a knockout like that on the Fox platform, that's good. It's good for any up and comer. It's going to get your name out there, and that's very important. And I'm going to be watching him from now on. When he fights, I'm going to watch him fight. And as long as the quality of his opposition is steadily increased, I'm going to watch with interest. And if he continues to win, then come back and ask me that question. But right now, I don't know. It's still... Yeah.
Fight previews, there isn't many, but Saturday the 3rd of July from the Dignity Health and Sports Park, the old StubHub. Chris, is it Colbert or Colbert, 15-0 against...
I say Colbert a lot, but I think it's Colbert. Yeah.
Against King Tug, who's actually a late stand-in. One for the WBA interim super featherweight. What do you think of Chris Colbert so far, Dougie?
I think he's a legitimate junior lightweight contender. I think he'll handle King Tug, who's a legit contender at featherweight, but not the same level of talent as Colbert. Colbert was a standout amateur, and he's a good athlete, good just all around boxing ability. I think he's been matched correctly. And I think he's feeling himself right now, and he wants to make a statement. And I expect him to do so against King Tug, even though King Tug is a tough cookie and a late replacement.
For people that recognize the name, Colbert was on the Netflix documentary, and at that time actually went by the name of Little B-Hop.
Yeah, that's high praise, and that's a lot to live up to.
Good matchup. I think Chris Colbert will come through, though. Also on this card, we have... I think it's Michel Rivera, 20-0 against John Fernandez, 21-1. What do you think of this matchup, Dougie? It's kind of a different one with a highly rated Spanish prospect in John Fernandez coming over to these shores.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with him.
He's looking like he could be a decent little matchup. His only loss so far was actually against Oshaki Foster on a 2018 Showbox card.
Oshaki can fight. Yeah, Oshaki's good.
Yeah. Michel Ferreira, though, looks like he could be the next big thing. A lot of people have kind of jumped on him with his ascent from last year. So I think it should be a home victory. I think we'll see the home corner taking it in that. Moving on to Wednesday, the 7th of July from Australia. I think this is going to be on ESPN+. Tim Tszyu against Michael Zarafa for the WBA Oceania and WBO, you love this, Dougie, WBO Global Super Welterweight World Title.
Yeah, I mean, Tim is he's a Ring Magazine rated junior middleweight. That's I don't pay attention to the minor titles or whatever, but he's got the look. I expect him to handle Zefra. He's a solid veteran. He's got a name in Australia, obviously, and I think Tszyu is being moved correctly, and he's climbing the rankings. He's probably going to get a knockout, and he's somebody. He's probably not as highly rated as Erickson Lubin, but he's on that level as far as like the natural talent. He's got the natural talent. I don't know if he has the same amateur background, but when you're the son of Kostya Tszyu, I know you've got a good foundation. I don't think his father would have allowed him to turn pro if he didn't think he had a future in this sport. And from what I've seen from Tim, he just impresses every time he's out there. I thought he was sensational against Jeff Horn.
Yeah, I mean, it should be a good test. Obviously Zarafa's got all of the experience. He's been in there with Anthony Mundine. He's been in with
and he's a middleweight. He's a bigger guy and all, but Tszyu is just so sharp technically, and he's got the power and he's got a little bit of his father's style to him. I think Tszyu is difficult for any world-class 154-pounder.
And I think that should be on ESPN Plus for anybody over in the US wanting to watch that in the early hours of Wednesday.
I'll be watching. If I don't watch it live, I'll be watching the replay.
All right, then, Dougie, if you just want to tell everyone where they can find you on all your social media channels.
Yeah, at Dougie Fischer, DougieFischer. That's my Twitter, and that's my Instagram, and that's all I've got, really. Unless you're a Facebook person.
Anything coming up with Ring Magazine?
Cover of our next magazine is Manny Pacquiao, and we're following that up with a special edition on Julio Cesar Chavez, which we've just started production on, and we're really excited about that. So that's not too shabby. Following Manny Pacquiao to Julio Cesar Chavez, two iconic fighters, two all-time greats.
Not Junior.
Not Junior. No, not Junior. I don't think he even gets a mention in there.
All right, and you can find
for those who didn't grow up with Julio Cesar Chavez, if you wonder why he's so revered, to this day, when you read this magazine, it'll take you on that journey of that career, from 1980, right up into the late 90s, and you'll understand why he's considered to be an all-time great.
Dougie, thanks again for giving us your time whilst you're on vacation. And you can find us at The Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter. And be sure to join us next week. This is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.
New Vodafone Pro broadband with average speeds of up to 900 megabits per second is rolling out in your area. That's unbreakable broadband at lightning fast speeds. It's the only broadband to give you reliable Wi-Fi in every room, or you can leave for free, guaranteed. Search Vodafone Pro broadband to get unbreakable broadband with average speeds of up to 900 megabits per second today. Vodafone. Together we can.
Up to 3 boosters. Leave with no early termination fee within 30 days receipt of third booster if receiving speeds below 10 megabits per second. Terms at vodafone.co.uk.